Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Captain Robert Curtis. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. And during this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's first World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Arthur Stanley Albress. Arthur Albress was born on the 14th of June 1904 in Melbourne. His mother's name was Maria, but little else is known of his childhood. He qualified to work as an engine driver and in 1925 married Pearl Rushby. The couple had 3 children, John, Beryl and Marie. In November 1940, Albress joined the militia, serving with the 49th Battalion on the Australian mainland and on Thursday Island. On the 11th of September 1941, he enlisted in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force. Later that year, he was taken on strength with the Australian Army Ordnance Corps. He embarked for Singapore in January 1942. After Japan's entry into the war in December 1941, the 8th Division AIF was engaged in fighting in defence of the Malayan Peninsula. On the 14th of February 1942, Commonwealth forces in Malaya were forced to surrender, and Private Albress was among the 45,000 British and Australian troops who became prisoners of war. He had suffered a gunshot wound to his thigh on the 15th and was hospitalised for a few weeks before joining his fellow troops at Changi prisoner of war camp. The Japanese soon called for working parties to build and expand new infrastructure across their empire. In July, Albress volunteered for B Force, bound for Borneo. The men had been assured of better food and conditions, but the almost 1,500 members of B Force found themselves on a hellish sea journey, cramped into the cargo holds of the Ibu Maru for the 11 days before arriving at Sandakan. Conditions at Sandakan soon devolved into some of the worst experienced by the prisoners of the Japanese. Prisoners, including the sick, were forced at gunpoint to work on construction of a military airstrip and were often beaten by their captors. Illness and death ravaged the camp. The food was scarce, and by January 1945, the prisoners were fending for themselves. The completed airfield was soon destroyed by Allied aircraft bombing, and between January and March 1945, some 450 of the fittest prisoners were ordered to march west to Ranau, a distance of around 260 kilometres. A second march began in May with more than 530 men forced to undertake the journey. All were suffering from malnutrition and some from disease. The marches were horrendous. The Japanese guards refused to let the prisoners rest, and those too sick or weak to continue were killed or left behind to die. Among these was Arthur Albress. Official records told that he died from malaria, but a witness saw him murdered by the guards as he fell. He died on the 19th of June 1945, some 60 kilometres from Ranau. He was 41 years old. Of the more than 2,400 Australian and British prisoners of war in Borneo, all but 6 perished at Sandakan, Ranau, or on the death marches. Private Arthur Stanley Albress is commemorated on the Labuan Memorial in Malaysia. He is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, amongst almost 40,000 Australians who died whilst serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Arthur Albress, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.